Hey everyone, Chris Haddon, Jason Balin, co-founders of REI360.net and HardMoneyBankers.com, here with the REI360 show. Today we are talking about buying to hold versus buying to flip.
We see so many instances of either borrowers in our lending company or real estate investors that we're colleagues with, and they just don't have a proper game plan when they go into a property, if they're going to buy it and hold it or if they're just going to flip it. And things can change so much, so you really need to have all those ducks in a row ahead of time. And we're going to explain a few steps that we have. Check it out right now.
It is a big mistake to go into a property, an acquisition of a piece of real estate, not having your game plan down perfect. We see it a lot at HMB that people say, okay, I'm going to buy this property, maybe I'm going to hold it, maybe I'm going to flip it, we'll see what happens, and that's a big mistake.
Yeah.
For a few different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, when you're flipping a property, you're flipping a property because you need short-term cash or you want short-term cash that you get from a deal, right? And when you're buying a rental property, it's typically long-term wealth. No one's getting rich off one rental property, especially in a short period of time. No. It doesn't matter if you're buying them all in cash or not. There's just not enough room to do that. So it's a longer-term play, sometimes a wealth play. And a lot of areas that you go when you buy properties, sometimes they're subdivisions, sometimes they're as small as counties, and sometimes even whole cities don't have the opportunity to flip a property in or buy rental property in. So first you really need to determine what you want. And if you don't have much money to work with, chances are you're not going to be able to buy rental properties because it costs money on the front end.
Requires more cash.
There's just a lot of things, and it's not going to be spitting out. It's not a spitting out ATM machine like most people think it is until it gets to that stability level where it does, stabilization place where it does.
Which can take some years.
So first off, you need to figure out exactly what you want. We're in a really good climate right now where there's a lot of flipping that's happening. You go and you buy a property at a distressed property that needs work, and you make your margins because you improve the property. And there's a big difference between the as-is value and the current or the resale value after the fact. So first describe the area that you want to be in, or describe the property type you want, and next you got to figure out the area. And I mean, I can name so many areas that we know locally, Baltimore and DC area, some Philly areas, and there's like these all over the country where there's opportunity to go buy a property that's distressed, flip it, renovate it, flip it, and make a $20,000, $30,000 margin on it.
Sure.
And a deal like that, you can't hold as a rental because you're just not gonna, may not cash. It just may not cash flow where the numbers need to be. And then vice versa, there's a lot of areas that there's no perceived, there's no equity to gain in there, but
cash flow.
But there's good cash flow. You may not have a lot of equity in it, but there's cash flow in there.
Okay, so when looking at a particular area, say you flip over here and you buy rentals over here.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to go about your game plan,
exactly.
Especially if you want to do multiple deals.
And there could be some areas that overlap. I may hold it as a rental, I may not. But for instance, you can't buy a $200,000 property that's only going to rent for $1,500 a month. It doesn't work.
That does not work. Okay. Well, since you just touched on that, let's talk about the problem of the construction, the property condition itself. Say it is a market, it is an area that you could do either one. What you do inside that property is going to change. It's going to vary drastically based on your exit strategy.
Exactly. I mean, if it's a rental, sometimes you just need to clean it up, replace the carpet. You may put in different appliances. You may put in different types of countertops and things like that. I mean, it also depends on the type of...
In all likelihood, lower end finishes.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the...
Smaller budget.
It'll depend on what type of rent rates you get in the area, obviously. If it's a higher end area that has higher end rent rates, or certain government programs, subsidized programs have requirements that you need, but you need to know all those things going into it. But rule of thumb is the renovations are, interior renovations, I would say, are typically less. I mean, at the end of the day, a new roof is a new roof. If it's a rental property or if it's a flip, siding, all the big, major mechanical things are typically the same, but those 20% of interior finishes are usually, the cost you can cut.
Yeah, here's what we see frequently at HMB. Hopefully not too often because we want everyone to make a ton of money. Everyone we lend to is obviously the goal. But sometimes it happens that people say, okay, I'm going to buy this property, I'm going to hold it as a rental. And we say, okay, we'll make sure that the refinance is going to work out because a bank refi on an investment property is hard to come by. It's not easy to qualify for.
Yeah.
It can be done, of course, but it's not guaranteed. So people will do the work as a rental, and then the bank does not approve the refi. See it all the time. Banks love turning down.
Well, and typically they're not getting a refi until a tenant moves in to begin with. So you're taking a lot of risk because you have a fully renovated house, you're throwing a tenant in there, and that thing's losing value the day that person moves in.
Yeah, and if they even get that far, or
Yeah.
they might not get to the tenant part, and they're just doing the pre-qualification
Fair
sort of
enough.
thing, and they're like, this isn't going to work out because of credit or income or whatever, and they say, oh, okay, fine, I'll throw it on the market. But then they throw it on the market with rental grade finishes. And you're not going to
then they're
compete with the
screwed.
people with the granite and the nice everything else and the hardwood. Like, you can't throw that and think you're going to get the same price. And then we see it that, like, okay, time goes on, and then maybe they drop the price, and then all of a sudden all the numbers in the deal
They're
look
skewed.
different,
They're
and
all
you might
skewed.
even be losing money. We see it all the time. So, moral of the story is, have your game plan tight and execute it exactly as you have it planned. Is it a rental? Is it a flip? Either one's great, but you got to know what you're doing with the piece of property.
Yeah, and the two kind of formulas when you're evaluating properties on the front end, if it's you truly like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, obviously don't buy the property till you do know. But when you're evaluating it, there's two things to look at that are important. Number one, when you flip a house, you're looking to make around 20% on the total cost of the money that's getting put into
What
the
your
deal.
all-in cost is with your acquisition, construction,
Exactly.
everything.
So if you're buying it for 100, it
20%
needs
on top of that.
if it needs 40 grand to work, you have another 10% and 10K in costs, some other miscellaneous stuff, and you're into it at about 150 grand. That could be someone else's money, that could be your money. You need to be making close to, or projecting to make close to $30,000. That's just what it is. Slightly less, slightly higher, fine. But you can't go into a deal and say, oh, I'm going to make like $5,000 or $10,000 because it's ludicrous.
Too many things can go wrong, or you're going to lose money.
Exactly. So first off,
It has to be the right amount of spread.
First off, you need to make sure when you're evaluating that property, it's in an area that you can make, 20% spread. And a lot of areas across the country, they just don't have that ability. There's no flipping. It's you buy a nice property that's fully renovated for 150, you buy a crappy property for 120, 130. There's just not that spread. So, you have to take some of those areas out of the equation. But use that 20% formula, that's big. The other end, you got to look on the rental formula of, do my rent rates support, in order to get cash flow from it, support, the amount of money I have into the deal. We like to use 1.5%, but I know a lot of investors use less than that. They use down to maybe like 1%. So what that means is, in our world, anytime we're all in on a property at $100,000, we want to get $1,500 a month in rent back out of it. And I know in some areas that's harder to get, but it definitely can't be any less than $1,000, with a 1% mark.
Yeah, 1%.
So you need a minimum of $1,000 for every $100,000 that's deployed. Doesn't matter if it's your own cash, a private lender, or a bank. Obviously, a bank's the cheapest way to do it, and if you're looking to grow a rental portfolio, there's really no other option than to do a bank, because your margins are just too hard. It's too hard to do unless you can get cheap money, 4%, 5%, 6% money. But the reason we use that formula, there's no hidden secret, is at a $100,000 bank loan, your payment's going to be $500, $600 a month, another $200 in taxes, some insurance, so maybe $700. If you're only getting $1,000, you're getting $300 positive cash flow, best case scenario.
Right.
And
vacancies and other stuff that can happen.
And assuming you bought this at the best numbers and you got full leverage from that bank, then you didn't need any cash out of pocket, which is still hard. If you need cash out of pocket, you have real cash in there as well. So we look for a little bit higher return, and when we go into properties, we know 100% of the time, is this going to be a rental? Is this going to be a flip? Mm-hmm. And if you're in a fortunate enough area that you do have the ability to you could do kind of either one, that's great as a backup plan, but you still need to know ahead of time which one you're doing.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Always have your game plan together, and either one can work. They're both great strategies. We do both rentals and flips, but the key is just executing perfectly on what your plan is.
Thanks, guys. Until next time, check us out at hardmoneybankers.com, rei360.net, hashtag the REI360 show, and on Hard Money Bankers YouTube page, Hard Money Bankers. Thanks again.